Behold, just another day in the life for a legendary Tomb Raider, such as Relic Hunter Inaros. Relic Hunter Inaros was born when he acquired a legendary ancient dagger from a pharaoh's tomb that allows you to fire infested projectiles at your enemies. And he can dominate enemies with archaic weapons such as a bow, as well as more modern measures. My name is Andy, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to FrameWork, a series of Warframe builds and weapons built specifically for them. Best ongoing game, a relic weapon spoken of only in whispers from the Game Awards. Built of Bala, Laka, and Varjit 2 Jai links, this is an ancient and powerful weapon, equipped with an even more powerful Exodia. So I know that some of you have missed the Plague Star event and will not have this incredibly fun and powerful Exodia, but you can buy these from other players, and they're not that expensive at the time of this writing, so I do recommend you pick one up. Since I know lots of the people that watch this won't have access to a full set of Exodia Contagion, I've held off on building more or upgrading mine, so you can see all the footage in this video with just one. You only need to buy one to get this much power. The enemy awaits. We will charge into battle and fire off our pocket sand, and then damage so high it will eradicate your speech centers in your brain. When bullet jumping and or double jumping, Exodia Contagion allows you to fire a ghostly infested projectile that explodes in a large blast radius, dealing both the statuses you've built onto the weapon as well as some innate viral. And it's very powerful. As you can see, it takes the stealth multiplier from my pocket sand and does devastating damage to large groups of armored level 100 enemies. And in case it doesn't kill them in one, you can go ahead and follow it up with some more because it has no cooldown. Also deals a lot of self-damage. But this dagger is quite potent by itself. As you can see, we can very easily clean up these level 100 enemies in just a few swings because of the guaranteed finisher on the forward combo of Stinging Thorn, a glorious and powerful dagger stance that you must get acquainted with as soon as possible. So let's begin our introductions. Again, this dagger is built from Bala, Laka, and Varjit 2 Jai. It doesn't really matter that much what the handle is, but you definitely want Varjit 2 Jai or something with a similar stat spread. We're going for full critical chance. To make this build work as well as it does, we need to be able to get a decent chance to crit when we fire off our infested projectile, because then we have a decent chance that our gas proc will crit if we get one from hitting a crowd of enemies, and that's what will deal massive damage. As you can see, we have a weapon that is not built for the combo counter. That's a rarity, and that's because, again, Stinging Thorn has this forward combo, and the end of this combo opens enemies to finishers. So since you already have covert lethality, one combo will kill any enemies in the game, no matter what they are, as long as they can take finishers, and before that, you already have some force slash procs on that combo, you have good gas procs, even though we have low status chance, the weapon is pretty fast, and Primed Fury increases your finisher speed, whereas Berserker for some reason does not. If you wanted to know what it would take for a weapon to be good without using the combo counter very much, there you go, all of that. But of course, Inaros must accompany this weapon and give it its glorious finisher power by using his pocket sand, which is why we have max range and a little bit of efficiency, but we'll talk more about that later. We also have a little bit of duration. We don't want the duration to get too low, so we have time to crowd control lots of enemies, maybe control them with our 4 a little bit, which makes good zone control, but besides that, this is a very normal build. Negation Swarm will protect you from knockdowns and potentially your own status effects from hitting yourself with your own infested projectiles, although they do so much damage that it's pretty hard to survive. Yeah, don't get hit by those. But anyway, let's talk about the cat. The elephant in the room, the Adarza Kavat in the room. This is a very powerful weapon, but the problem is it doesn't have a vacuum. Kavats and Kubros and the Helminth Charger have oft been slighted for not having a vacuum effect, and I agree that that's a massive problem, but this pet is so powerful that I honestly think that you should use it anyway under some specific circumstances. Hunter Recovery allows your pet to heal you for 30% of the damage it deals, which is very powerful on Inaros. These stats are not accurate. The arsenal for Kavats and Kubros and the Helminth Charger is bugged in the simulacrum for some reason. We will go out later and show you just how high this damage is, but needless to say, it's pretty high. Say I'm not just going to instantly evaporate these enemies, or there's another similar crowd over yonder. We're going to charge up our Scarab Armor, and then we're going to lose a lot of our health. Keep your eye on my health bar in the top right corner as we wade into combat with my Kavat. Now I have high armor, so I'm not just going to evaporate against these enemies, but I am going to die if I don't get some health back. However, that's not going to be much of a problem because of my Kavat. Do you see my health bar jumping up? That is because of my kitty's attacks, and suddenly I am at full health once more, and as my cat is losing its health, we can simply restore it as well. Just as Hunter Recovery will heal you for the damage your pet does, Pack Leader will heal your pet for the damage that you do, allowing you and your pet to stay alive with your gigantic health pools basically indefinitely, while still doing a lot of damage. Sharpened Claws also very frequently removes all armor from targets, and Cat's Eye gives you 60% flat critical chance to all of your weapons very frequently. This cat is almost impossible to kill, it completely removes armor from any level enemies, it full heals you literally constantly, and it's cute! It's a cat! I like cats! But it is a meaningful problem to not have a vacuum. You need to keep that in mind. People are not being sheep for constantly using Sentinels instead of Kubros, Kavats, or the Helmet Charger. It really is a problem to not have a vacuum. Because as we're spamming out our pocket sands, given with a little bit of efficiency, we need more energy. The way we're killing enemies, the way we're healing our Kavat, the way we're doing everything that we're doing that is so powerful involves using pocket sand. So we need to pick up energy orbs from enemies that we kill, and we cannot vacuum them up because we don't have a sentinel. So you have to walk over them, and that's a big problem. This Kavat is a powerhouse. The way to mitigate the negatives of not having vacuum is to play on maps that are going to be small. Use this loadout for defense missions or interceptions or maybe survival if you're going to stick to one general area, and then you won't have to move around so much. As you pocket sand a group of enemies and then hit them with your infested projectile to kill them, all you'll have to do is sort of wander around the general area and you will get energy orbs back. You won't have to be running into a different room, running all over the map to get energy orbs, and you'll be able to benefit from the great power of this Kavat. Speaking of energy, we have the Embolist. This silly meatbag is a terrible weapon that you should not use, and the reason that I have it in this loadout is to demonstrate that Eroding Blight, although it is a terrible mod, the magazine capacity does basically nothing. This weapon has terrible ammo economy, it has really fast reload anyway, so increasing the magazine isn't a big deal. Terrible mod, but it provides the blight effect, and the blight effect restores energy. Even though this weapon is really, really, really bad, even with a full build, it's barely able to do anything to these enemies, even with a flat 60% critical chance buff. It has the ability to restore your energy, and in a build where you can't vacuum up energy orbs, but you can kill literally any number of enemies as long as you can pocket sand them and throw an infested projectile at them, being able to restore your energy is a gigantic boon. What will happen a lot of the time in higher level missions is you'll see a group of enemies before you, you will have just enough energy to fire off pocket sand, you'll fire it off, have this out instead of your melee dagger, then you'll jump into the air, fire an infested projectile, it'll die, and this syndicate effect will be active since you're using this instead of the dagger. It'll fill up, explode, viral proc everything around you, which is fine, and then give you the energy back to keep doing that, which is really important. You should not actually use the Embolist. I wouldn't do that to all of you. The best weapon that fits those criteria is probably the Sinoid Gammacore. I recommend this build. I did overforma this weapon a lot as I was experimenting with builds. You'll probably do this on 3. This is pretty powerful. You also restore your energy when you kill lots of enemies. So in practice, what you're going to do is just keep this out, not even really fire it that much, while you kill scores of enemies with your pocket sand and air dagger projectile combo, like so. That will give you a crap ton of affinity, and then you'll restore energy and be able to do it again. All you really want is to hold something that gives you back energy. And then if enemies survive, this is really precise, and you can just shoot them in the head and finish off the stragglers. Oftentimes, the critical gas proc will favor enemies on the edge and not kill them, and you can use this to dust those enemies off. We have relics from both future and past that you can use to kill the straggling, surviving enemies. The Dread is useful here because it wants headshots really badly, but it's a bow. It has travel time and a little projectile drop. It's hard to get headshots with this. But not if you pocket sand everything. You can use pocket sand or scarab swarm or whatever and hold the enemies in place, and then you can fairly easily hit them in the head, or at least hit them and deal a big slash proc, which will clean them up nice and neat. You're seeing that my Adarza Kavat does actually remove the armor from enemies pretty consistently, surprisingly reliably, as long as you're engaged in combat constantly, and that means that you can pretty reliably just annihilate enemies in one shot. Most of the time, you need to rely on slash procs that will ignore armor to kill enemies with this weapon at higher levels. The way that we've accomplished that, even though we only fire one projectile, given one that's guaranteed to crit, every time we pull the bow string, is with multi-shot. So we have a 50% chance to fire 2 projectiles and a 50% chance to fire 3, and they're all guaranteed to crit. So we actually have a decent chance with just Hunter munitions to get 1 slash proc, and this weapon does so much damage when it does proc that 1 slash proc is often enough fact aside that we have a decent chance per trigger pull overall to naturally get a status effect, and it's almost guaranteed to be slash. The only reason we have prime cryo rounds here is because there's only one mod slot left once you put on all of these mods, and prime cryo gives you the biggest damage bonus. You could go for a dual stat element though if you'd like. That's the gist of Relic Hunter Inaros. By using your pocket sand found deep within forbidden tombs, you can blind enemies to your presence and destroy them with stealth multipliers from melee weapons, whether it's from finishers or from Exodia Contagion or from some other effect. You could use whips or just weapons with large range as well to great effect. And you can also use various other weapons that require precision to deal most of their damage to very powerful effect as well. Alongside a cat that can sustain your health with its glorious Hunter Recovery mod, and your own ability to sustain the cat, you have a very powerful combination. As you can see, the cat's actual damage stats are very impressive. Once again, you just need to keep in mind how much weaker this build will get if you use it in a mission type that is very mobile. Almost all of the benefits of this build are against large numbers of targets or heavily armored targets, not against moving targets, not against disparate targets. You can still melee to good effect, like you can still use this build, but it's going to be really hard to sustain your energy. It's going to be kind of a pain to hit all the enemies. Going beyond the normal caveat that framework builds are specifically designed for the warframe in question. They are built in context and not to be objectively the most powerful, although sometimes they do result in being also the most objectively powerful. You need to keep in mind that this loadout is also in context. If you're not doing a mission where you don't have to move around as much, this loadout is much weaker, but if you are, it's extraordinarily powerful. And with that, I hope you've enjoyed this framework build. If you did, check out others like it by looking for the film reel style thumbnail when I upload content in the future, or just check out my framework playlist on my main channel page. You may be particularly interested in my frameworks for Valkyr, Chroma, and Oberon, which are also all sort of melee-ish tanks that have a lot of effective health, but the way that they kill enemies and their pattern of combat is very different. So you can find those in the description if you're interested. Thanks very much for watching. Subscribe if you had a good time. Check me out elsewhere on the internet in the description, and I'll see you all next time.